First up, Season 2 of Victoria on PBS's Masterpiece premieres this weekend. The program picks up with the most powerful woman in the world wrestling to maintain that power, marriage and motherhood. And how do we know how she felt about that? She wrote it all down. The enduring image of Victoria, the British queen who reigned for 63 years, is of a dour and bereft woman, long mourning the death of her beloved Prince Albert. She wasn't always that way.
I want to be your wife, Albert, as well as a mother.
Victoria, the Masterpiece series now in its second season, centers on the young Victoria, a spirited, undaunted woman who ascends to the throne at age 18, having had zero training in leadership. She's played by actress Jenna Coleman.
She'd grown up in an environment where she had never been in a room alone with a man before, and literally overnight she becomes the most powerful person in the world, and moves her mother to the other side of the palace, and begins to conduct business. I mean, it's utterly mind-boggling.
Where do you think she got that conviction, given how confined she was up until that moment?
I've thought about that a lot, actually, because I do wonder, I suppose it's how much is nature versus nurture, and, how much she was born with, because her father, when she was born, called her a pocket Hercules from her being like a toddler. So I think, obviously, it's within her, that kind of independent, fiery spirit.
In Season 2, newly married to Albert and having just given birth to their first child, Victoria is at pains to assert herself in a society, government, and court all dominated by men.
All I can think about, Albert, is the one man I thought I could trust, my husband, has deceived me.
We're in a moment now, obviously, having so much conversation about women and the suppression of women, the harassment and treatment of women. We see some of that even with Victoria, despite that she's queen. Has it put a new prism through which you see her now?
I think what's interesting is, of course, we have moved forward, but really in how long is it since Victoria's, over 150 years, not as much as we should have. And I think that's kind of what it really highlights in a way. But what is incredibly interesting about Victoria is she didn't believe women should have the vote. And obviously she was a woman, and a very powerful woman, but I think she felt probably guilty for that power in lots of ways, particularly in her marriage with Albert.
Finding that restraint came easily to Coleman, especially given that she was tightly bound, as Victoria and women of her time were.
The costumes are very interesting because trying to understand her psyche, it's when you're playing somebody who's full of passion and you want to run down a corridor, and you do, and then suddenly you can't breathe because you're constantly being physically restricted. It's your breath, it's your emotion, everything that's held in your chest, really. So of course it's psychologically really interesting.
We will snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and the spirit of Trafalgar burns as bright now as it has ever done.
I just thought this is going to make a great drama because Victoria's life was so incredibly full of the most extraordinary incidents.
Novelist Daisy Goodwin is the show's creator and writer.
I'm sort of obsessed with Victoria in a slightly unhealthy way. I mean, I don't even know where Victoria ends and I begin, really, sometimes.
Her fascination with Victoria began when she was given what she thought was the unenviable college assignment of poring through the monarch's diaries.
I'd got her diaries out of the library and I was thinking, oh God, Queen Victoria's diaries, really, do I have to? And then I opened this page and there was this incredible diary entry just after she'd met Albert, and she says, my dearest Albert, oh, he came in from the rain and he was wearing his white cashmere breeches, nothing underneath. And I went, oh, that's not what I was expecting from Queen Victoria.
So when we see these many love scenes throughout Victoria, I mean, this is, as you say, she was a very healthy young woman.
Actually, Victoria was incredibly sensual, and I think the physical side of marriage, I think sex was very important to her, and she and Albert's affair was, their marriage was a very, very lusty one. They had, 6 children in 7 or 8 years, and 9 children in all. That's a lot, so, and she had no contraception either, so, she just had to put up with the consequences.
There were so many sort of what we might think are outrageous things that happen. And I know that people have said that couldn't possibly be true, but most of what I understand that we're seeing in the show is stuff that actually happened. It was almost written for television.
Yeah, I mean, that was the reason I just thought this is going to make a great drama, because Victoria's life was so incredibly full of the most extraordinary incidents, 7 assassination attempts. When she came to the throne, there was it was a kind of odds-on chance that, the monarchy the British would get rid of the monarchy.
She survived, of course, becoming England's longest-reigning monarch until she was surpassed by her great-great-granddaughter, Queen Elizabeth, in 2015. Have you discovered through Victoria that there are times in the world that people just need the monarchy and those figures?
I think the thing about the royals is they are like a really long-running TV series, and, you've got to keep putting in new cast members, you've got to have new kind of plot wrinkles, and, Diana was a very popular cast member. I'm sure that Meghan Markle will be, again, a very popular new addition to the kind of royal soap. And in Victoria's time, when Victoria was and Albert were having lots of children and showing themselves in public a lot, that they were very popular. It's really about, you've got to play to the audience constantly.
And it also helps to see that the royals, they're just like us.
No, I think you are tired. I think your mother was right. You should have rested for longer.
I am not tired, Albert. I am angry.